Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show following, we'll get into how to describe that game against the Winnipeg Jets, between the Winnipeg Jets and the Chicago Blackhawks. Ken will be here right away, and we'll dig into that a little bit more. Lots to talk about, trade deadline stuff heading into the end here. Playoff chase, lots of interesting stuff happening there. I will say this, to me, that was prototypical Winnipeg Jets hockey. This is, and let me make something very clear right off the start of this. You can just drop it right there. Thanks. Let's make one thing clear right off the start of this. 2 points and not playing a good game of hockey is better than not getting 2 points and playing a really good game of hockey right now. Let's get that clear and let's get that out of the way. Jets are playing a number of games against teams below the playoff line, hurting teams, and the next game they play against Vegas is a team that, while they did win their last game, they're a little bit lost in the woods, have some problems. My concern is if the Winnipeg Jets, if that's how they respond to playing a team that is not that engaged defensively and isn't interested in playing, like let's say a playoff level style of hockey game, which the Chicago Blackhawks clearly did not on this evening. I think what you want to see from them is the Jets shouldn't just be if the Jets believe they can make the playoffs, they shouldn't be just chasing down a playoff spot. They should be trying to round their game into the kind of game that would succeed in the playoffs. And I take a look at that game tonight, and that is not a game that would have done it in that situation. Defense optional for much of the game. There were some things I liked about it. The third line I thought was really good. We will dig into that later. I think they were scoring the kind of goals that, you want to see the Jets scoring down the stretch here. But that to me is one of these games that we see the Jets fall into far too often. And to me is kind of one of those like litmus tests that tell us where the Jets game is at or the direction it's heading in. If the Jets go through this next stretch of playing, below the playoff line kind of teams, and we see a bunch of those kind of games, I do not like their chances down the stretch, because what it tells me is they're falling in love with that idea of playing wide open hockey. If you've heard the show before, you know how I feel about this. If you want to play fire wagon hockey, the Jets typically are going to win that game. And I think it's the style of hockey. You've heard me say before, the Jets, they love playing that wide open style of hockey. Tonight's game is a perfect example of that. And the reason they love it is because they don't have to put in their best defensive effort, and they can outscore their mistakes. And on a night like tonight, where it basically comes down to a couple really good opportunities with the net pulled for the Chicago Blackhawks to tie that game, instead the Jets get it out and win 6-4, and everything seems calm and everything's fine. That puck goes in at the end of the game there. Connor Hellebuyck doesn't make a really good save. All of a sudden it's 5-5. We don't know what's happening there, but the idea that the Jets kind of, and it was nice to hear in the post-game comments that some of the Jets recognized that it wasn't their best game, because the line that I've been sick of hearing for years from this team is, stay in the fight, stick-to-itiveness, all that kind of stuff, where they patted themselves on the back for games like that. There needs to be a recognition of that. A game like that is not the brand of hockey they want to be playing. I think I heard that. We'll see what the results are. The issue for me is this is the kind of hockey the Jets always seem to fall back into. It's almost like it's their natural state. And it's a problem that this is what they want to fall back into, because it's the teams that kind of fall into that rhythm of like a really hard grinding game that have success in the playoffs. Maybe they can ride this kind of game and get back into the playoffs and get in there. I just don't like their chances of flipping the switch and playing the way they should be playing down the stretch if they play too many more games like that. That's my early take on it. Tons to talk about here. And let's bring in the best guy to talk about it with, Ken Wiebe, man with the best entry music in the business, although Hammer had some good one now that we, if you were tuning into the last show. But in the meantime, here comes Kenny. Kenny, I'm calling an audible. I sure hope it worked.
There you go.
My micro wasn't working. Tried this one, and already people are saying that it's causing problems off the top of the show. So hopefully this is working. I'm sure we'll let us know if that's the case. But Ken, I mean, right off the bat, I think I made it pretty clear. Yeah, the Jets won. Yeah, they got 2 points. Yeah, that's the most important thing at this time of the season, especially as they continue to try and push to get into that playoff race. But I'm not making any bones about it. I did not like that game at all from the Winnipeg Jets. What was your take on it?
Yeah, puck management. Yikes. not suboptimal on the puck management side, Sean. Defense optional at times for the Jets. There's no doubt about that. Their slot was like the 7-Eleven, always open. Outside of that, the Jets found plenty of offense in the game, but another strange game all over the place. Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't like the fourth goal by the Chicago Blackhawks. I still can't fully tell if it changed direction off of the stick of Brendan Dillon. I don't think it did. I think it just did beat him short side. But I mean, again, it wasn't a great day for Hellebuck. But if he doesn't stop that Taylor Radish one-timer in the slot, the game's going to overtime, right? So it was. Let's just put it this way: that did not look like a playoff game to me, Sean. That was not a team show. I mean, did they show some urgency? Sure. In pulling ahead 5-2, they showed some urgency, but way too loose and feeding the transition game of their opponent. And you're right. You said it right off the top. The Jets just need points. I mean, Pierre-Luc Dubois had the math perfectly this morning. Jets roughly need to go 15-5 in the last round.
That's what I love that they have the same math as we had. I love that's the exact math that we had after last show. 15-5. There you go. Sorry.
Right, but I mean, if that it's totally fine. It's 1-0 is what it is, but I think your point, what you were getting at, is if that's the effort they have against the Colorado Avalanche, it's not going to be 6-4 for the Jets. Let's just say that. But yeah, I mean, there was some good in the game for the Jets, sure. I mean, the fact that they rebounded, let's be honest, at 2-1 after giving up 2 goals in 23 seconds, it looked like the roof was going to cave in. Instead, the Jets stabilized quickly and then built a lead that was 5-2. But after that, again, I'm not sure that the Jets necessarily sat back, but they certainly weren't taking it to their opponent. So it was very strange. It's another really strange game, Sean. I mean, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you're not making a rash decision based on one game. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think my opinion has changed. Same as what I said last Sunday. I think that the Jets, long term, are better off probably moving Andrew Kopp and Paul Stastny. And I understand the ramifications and repercussions, and it wouldn't go over well. And Andrew Kopp had one of his best games in recent memory. He was outstanding tonight with the 2 assists. I thought he was great at center. We know he loves to play center. We know that he is effective down the middle when he is used there. I thought he was excellent in the hockey game. But if the Jets can get a player that can help them in the current format and get some picks or prospects, I still think that has to be the route that Kevin Cheveldayoff chooses, Sean. But what I would also say is that the fact that Andrew Kopp played tonight would lead me to believe that he has not been blown away by any of the offers he has received to date. And some of the teams we anticipated being in the running for Andrew Kopp, I think, are now out of the running based on some of the moves that they have made today. I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs, were one of the teams that kind of got in late. I think that getting Colin Blackwell probably takes them out of the running, and also obviously getting Mark Giordano. And Tampa Bay, we've noticed Matthew Joseph is a guy we talked about would have some appeal to the Jets. He's gone to the Ottawa Senators for Nick Paul. And again, we'll get into more trade stuff later on. But I mean, it was a strange game. I mean, so much of the Jets story was out there again today. Like Mark Scheifele made a couple of absolutely brilliant passes in that hockey game. One for a one-timer from Kyle Connor, another for a one-timer from Josh Morrissey. But there were other times where, I mean, he had another clear path to the net, didn't put his shoulder down, pulled up, looked for the trailer, lots of avoiding contact again. I mean,
tried to force a pass when he had a shot. Yeah.
It's hard to win in the playoffs when you're playing that way. So, like I said, I mean, those guys got the job done. They got their points when they needed it. But it was a strange game, and there were some shifts where you were wondering what was going on in the defensive zone. The Jets were leaving guys wide open. Even on the power play goal. I mean, it was kind of one of those things where each guy on the ice kind of thought the other guy was going to take Taylor Radish in the slot, right? And nobody took him. I mean, it's a great pass by Strome, but I mean, man, oh man, that was a strange.
Yeah, how's the shooting gallery open at that time of the game? It's crazy. Yeah,
right. So I mean, like, again, that team could they go 15-5? Sure, possibly, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't bet a large sum of money on it. Based on what we saw. But like you said, I mean, they got the job done. That's what they needed to do. But there were, Jansen Harkins talked about leaving a few of the bad things behind. I mean, there was a lot to clean up in that game. That McBain reference was a good one today, but it's no longer valid. He's been traded to the Arizona Coyotes for a second-round pick. So McBain will not be joining the Jets. At least that's my understanding.
Let's get into... let's dive into it right here. Let's get the playoff stuff out of the way right off the bat, because, or should we save that for last? You know what? Let's get into what we liked about this game, because we have kind of talked about this stuff. There were clearly glaring errors, but they did win 6-4. So there were some things that were done there. I'm going to give you an open canvas slightly with a little bit of restrictions here. I want you to tell me who impressed you most in this game: Nick Ehlers, Kyle Connor, or Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Oh, most. That's a hard answer. I just like the three of them together. I'm not trying to defer or sit on the fence. I liked all three for different reasons. I love the engagement of Dubois. Surprise, I know, surprise. I've been driving that bus for 2 years now, no doubt about it. I love the fact that I love the engagement. I love the fact that he grabbed onto Boris Kachuk's stick. I love the fact that Kachuk pushed back. And then I love the fact that Dubois didn't back down. I love the whole sequence from both players. I love that a lot. I love the speed of Nikolai Ehlers on the exchange with Kyle Connor, the wraparound. Calvin DeHaan kind of got caught flat-footed. The one-timer from Kyle Connor is pure beauty. Absolute beautiful shot. I mean, I still can't figure out how Fleury lost his glove on the sequence. Did Wheeler kind of bump into him? But if that were the case, why would they not have challenged for goalie interference, right? I mean, Derek King was obviously talking to the referee. If they felt that it was goalie interference, they would have challenged the play.
Maybe they thought the separation between, is
well, that's what I mean. He had time to reset, but I mean, can you really reset if you're not holding your glove? I mean,
maybe the argument is that at some point he could just maybe they think that he should have made a better effort to grab his glove. You know what I'm saying? There's certain times that he could have snagged, but yeah, I know what you're saying. I'll say this. I wanted to say this about Kyle Connors. You're talking about how perfect that one-timer was. It was perfect. But I don't think the casual hockey fan looks at that and realizes just how amazing that shot is. It is an extremely cerebral shot. And I say that because he knows that Fleury doesn't have the glove. And at the very least doesn't have the glove ready, or is going to just have got it ready, maybe not in position. But if you take a look at where that shot is placed, it is right above the pad, where he's got to reach for it, moving from one post to the other. So he's got to reach his pad across and down. And I remember this is one of those, I remember when I was younger and I played hockey, some guys would tell you about, what is it, the 12-inch shot or the 14-inch shot? It's like a cheat code in hockey where you shoot just inside the post and just up over the pad. And it doesn't look like a great shot, right? It looks like your everyday shot because every kid wants to, put one where the two bars meet in the top corner or whatever. But that shot just over the pad is tough enough to stop as it is. But when Kyle Connor puts that puck where he puts it, the only possible way that Marc-Andre Fleury is going to stop that puck is with his glove. And if he does not have his glove on, he is not going to stop that shot, or he's going to break his hand doing it. That was the only option for Marc-Andre Fleury in that situation. Crazy enough, Fleury actually tries to get his bare hand out into that spot. Now, let's say this. Let's give Marc-Andre Fleury credit. If he would have had his glove on, he would have stopped that shot. His instincts were right. No, Ken, take a look. It's not far from hitting his hand. The webbing of his glove would have been all over that shot. But it's the recognition by Kyle Connor that if he puts it in this spot, there's no way to stop that unless you're going to stop it with your bare hand. And that's why that's such a phenomenal play, because it's not just, a guy seeing open net or even using his peripheral, which is what really good scorers do, right? Ken, the pass comes across, they use their peripheral, and then they pick a spot. That is a guy not only using his peripheral to pick the right spot, but saying, I'm going to put it specifically right here, because without a glove, there's no way you stop that shot.
Agreed. My interpretation is this. I think that Fleury's hand was down there because he actually attempted to pick up the glove, and then he couldn't actually get it on. He didn't actually get it onto his hand. He was in his hand. So I don't know that his hand would have actually been where the shot went. But, I mean, your point is still very valid, and I'm with you. I mean, the fact that he's even attempting to make the save is a little bit ridiculous, but I mean, certainly good. Ken. You know what? You should check your audio.
Let me finish talking. Keep talking. I'm going to mess with my internet, and then I'll be back, okay?
Reset your modem, yeah? I'll go to the buffet here. I'll go to the buffet. No problem. No problem. Yeah, I mean, it's a good it's a good attempt, but I mean, it's an incredible shot by just an incredible sequence. I mean, to find the lane the way Scheifele did. I mean, the Jets have tried this a lot this year, and it hasn't been overly successful. But to put it in that perfect spot and for Connor to just hit it the way that he did was very that's a guy that scores 39 goals. I mean, he's about to hit 40. I mean, just an incredible shot all around. There's no doubt about that. Exceptional play and an exceptional shooter. I mean, Kyle Connor, the biggest thing about his game this year is he's been remarkably consistent, which, I mean, a lot of guys, even when you're a bona fide elite goal scorer, there are long swaths of games where maybe it's just not going for you. But Connor piles up shots on goal and he finishes. His finishing ability is just absolutely exceptional. So that's been an impressive part of his season. I think he's only had the one stretch where I think he went 5 or 6 games without a goal. Other than that, his consistency level has been absolutely fantastic. It's just been very impressive on a number of different fronts. And it's one of the reasons why the Jets are still on the periphery of this race. So Kyle Connor has been the Jets' best player. He's been, the most consistent player on the team. I mean, the fact that he's become an important penalty killer is also important all around. And, having Nikolai Ehlers back, I think, also is another incredible boost for the Jets. I mean, we know that he had to get himself back up to speed. He has done so. And, I mean, again, that line had a couple tough shifts in their own zone where they got caught as well. Oh, there you go. Now I can see a little more clearly. You got it sorted out, maybe?
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, keep rolling.
Ehlers just, I mean, the way that his speed backs off the opponent really sets up shooting lanes for Kyle Connor. And then you get Dubois kind of going to the net hard. I think it's really impressive. And, I mean, Rob Mahoney makes a point. I mean, yes, I mean, we've been on the case of Mark Scheifele this year. He had stretches where he was tough, not producing offense. Now you look up and he's almost at a point a game. You give him credit for that. There's no doubt about that. He has produced offensively. I just feel that there are pieces of his game that could use some improvement. And I think if you're asking the coaching staff with truth serum, they're never going to, I don't think they're going to point it out publicly, but I think they need him to put his shoulder down and get a little bit more physically engaged in some battles. But at the same time, he's putting up points. He drew an important penalty right after the Hawks scored on the power play. 10 seconds later, he forces Caleb Jones to, haul him down. So you have to give him credit for that part of his game. And, Blake Wheeler, important points today. I mean, the Jets need more than just one line going. So what happened today? Jansen Harkins scores twice. Jansen Harkins snaps out of a 18-game drought on a night where Adam Lowry is unavailable due to COVID and out for at least Tuesday's game. Jeff Hamilton asked Dave Lowry what the plan was. They're going to have to try to sort out a way to get Adam Lowry across the border so that he's only going to have to serve a 5-day quarantine. I mean, that's also part of the things that teams don't normally have to deal with. That's one of the challenges. So, I mean, will he be available for the end of the homestand? I mean, we'll see. We'll find out, I guess, when the Jets return home. But, yeah, I mean, that's a big loss for the Jets. Adam Lowry was playing great hockey, 6 goals and 7 points in his last 11 games. But what happened tonight? Jansen Harkins steps up. You know what else happens? Andrew Kopp slides over to the middle and, like I said, played one of his best games in a long time. I said this with Kelly Moore, Sean, on the pregame show. I think that this stretch has been tough for Andrew Kopp emotionally. I mean, he basically put his soul out on display the other day when he spoke to the media. I don't think there's any question that being, the number one target in trade rumors has been tough on Andrew Kopp. We know it has been tough on the ice because he had 1 goal in 16 games. That's not to say that his effort level was high, but things weren't clicking for him the way they had tonight. On a night where you wonder if it might be his last game as a member of the Winnipeg Jets, he played one of his best games in his natural position. So if you're a team that was on the fence about Andrew Kopp, you watch that game and say, oh yeah, Andrew Kopp can play center for our team down the stretch and into the playoffs if we need him to. And I mean, does that mean they raise the offer? That's up to the teams to decide, right? I mean, that, like I said, Sean, if Kevin Cheveldayoff had received an offer that he felt was palatable, that could help his team not fall out of the race and extend their window of contention, they would have made the deal already, right? I mean, that's how I interpret it. So is some team going to step up tomorrow or tonight? We'll see. I expect somebody will. I just don't think they have yet.
I know you think that. So, which means you fully expect that Kevin Cheveldayoff is all in on moving those players. Did you find it strange at all that they were in the lineup tonight?
Not strange wouldn't be the right word. I mean, this is how I explain it. I understand the asset management folks are not happy, and if a guy had gotten hurt, of course, you got ammunition to say that's, I'm not saying it's a fireable offense, but some people would view it as such. Every time a guy steps on the ice, he could get hurt. So guys get hurt. Matt Zuccarello got hurt in his first game with the Minnesota Wild after the trade last year, right? I mean, this happens. So there's always a risk involved. Does it mean, would you prefer to manage the risk? Of course. But the Jets are trying to, they're trying to do 2 difficult things at one time, Sean, right? They are trying to stay in the race, but help themselves in the long term. And if they don't get someone in terms of the offers that can help them, they're just going to ride it out with Andrew Kopp and Paul Stastny. I still think they get moved tomorrow, but they're not going to just give those guys away, right? I mean, that's the whole part of this high stakes game of chicken. The expectation is the closer you get to the deadline, if there's a bidding war, we know there are teams that are still interested in Andrew Kopp, including the Carolina Hurricanes, who kind of emerged on the scene late. David Pagnotta had mentioned the Washington Capitals. Today, I mean, there are teams that are interested. The Colorado Avalanche remain the front runner. The Boston Bruins are still interested, but they don't have a lot of money left after Lindholm, right? So it makes it super interesting. And again, Colorado's in the place that we're talking about. I mean, the Jets would like a roster player, but I mean, Colorado's sitting here thinking they don't want to give up Alex Newhook. Certainly not for a rental. And even if Kopp would want to extend with the Avalanche.
No,
but you
Alex
know what else?
Newhook
I mean,
has a far higher ceiling than Andrew Kopp does.
Right. So, I mean, this is the thing for me. I mean, some people think that because Claude Giroux went to Florida and not to Colorado, that suddenly Joe Sakic's going to panic and overpay for someone. Have you been watching Joe Sakic? That is not how Joe Sakic operates. I understand that it's an all-in year for Colorado, but the majority of their core is signed long-term. Yes, Nathan McKinnon will need a new deal, but the majority of that core is locked in. If Nazem Kadri leaves, as most of us expect, Andrew Kopp would be a perfect guy to slide in, right? So, I mean, I think Andrew Kopp is still going to end up in Colorado, but I don't think they've made their best offer yet. So this is a high-stakes game of poker, and, neither party is giving in or wanting to show their hand just yet. Is how I interpret it.
What kind of problem does that put the Jets in? Because the market is clearly moving on, right? Like the teams are moving, they're making their play. A lot of the big names. I mean, geez, Ken, I'll give you credit for this. I mean, and I think I usually give you credit for most things, but I mean, a whole bunch of the players that you've talked about have gone off the board. I mean, the guys that you talked about that the Jets would have interest in have been getting picked off one by one here as this has been going. So I wonder about this situation. One, do you think that the Jets are maybe overvaluing or maybe GMs feel that the Jets are overvaluing the players they have? One, because the value of keeping Kopp or having Kopp in the lineup and having Stastny in the lineup is clearly evident on a night like tonight for a team that is still trying to fight and make the playoffs. And I don't know if there's a two to that, but I wonder if maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff is saying these guys are really valuable for us. So if you want these guys, you're going to have to give us something really big. How about you give us a roster player? And this is what I get back to what we did on the last podcast, where I said, like, the idea of moving those guys out for picks and then moving those picks to bring a guy out to, go from being a seller and turning around to be a buyer. It sounds crazy tricky. And as tricky as it sounds, I think it's even trickier than that, because like I said, every team goes into these situations every year with UFAs that they're going to lose if they don't sign them. And how much, listen here, let's take and put it through another team's lens. A guy like Philip Forsberg right now in Nashville, where they're like trying to figure out what to do with this guy who is one of their best players, just became their franchise leader in goals. It sounds like his contract negotiations are going nowhere with the team. So you get this gritty little Nashville Predators team that, if you take him out of the lineup, is probably not doing anything in the playoffs. Although maybe they won't do anything in the playoffs as it is. They're in a bit of a tough spot in that division, but he's a very important person on that team. So what Chevy is proposing, if you look at it through a Nashville Predators lens, is, let's just take the best player on our team, ship him out, get some assets, send those assets down the road, and then turn around and bring that same guy in over again. It's not easy to do.
Oh, of course it's not easy. I mean, here's the other thing for me. I mean, the Nashville Predators won the deal, obviously, to get Philip Forsberg. I mean, with all due respect to Marty Erat. But so you got however many, it's 5 or 6 years of Philip Forsberg. So to me, the whole you get nothing for him, I don't really subscribe to that theory. And again, before the asset managers jump all over me, I understand perfectly well how asset management works. But I also don't think that you could say, if you're the Jets, you got 7 good years out of Andrew Kopp as a 4th-round draft pick. You're not losing him for nothing. But if you're giving up the opportunity to make your team better, that's when I have a problem with it. I'm not saying if the Jets are only getting offered, second-tier draft picks or secondary prospects, then by all means, try to make the playoffs with those guys. I mean, I understand the financial implications. I mean, not that it's coming out of my wallet, but I understand there's financial implications involved. So if that's what the Jets are choosing to do, I mean, you can understand that. But you also know that there are some people that aren't going to agree with it. So it's a tough, you're on the tightrope and there's no net below you. Like I said the other day, I hate to use the same metaphor, but I mean, that's what they're looking at. They're trying to do 2 things at the same time. If they can do them before the bell rings at 2:00, you'll be very impressed, right? I mean, but if they don't do anything, there's risk involved in that as well, right? I mean, we went through this last year when the Jets were looking at Jamie Alexiak and Matthias Ekholm, right? So the Jets went in on those guys, but they didn't land them. So they still won a round last year. So, I mean, I understand that we always go wild when it comes to deadlines and free agency. Sometimes the best moves a team makes are the ones they don't make, right? That's the other part of the equation. And sometimes the big fish is not the guy who has the biggest impact down the stretch and into the playoffs. So, I understand why the Florida Panthers went and got Claude Giroux. He's an incredibly competitive individual. He wants to win, and he's been a productive player for a long time. But I think history has shown us that the best quote-unquote player isn't always the most impactful player after the trade deadline. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it all goes.
Well, I honestly think Kenny's water bottle, who is always riding me in this show, so he better say something smart if I'm going to agree with him for once here, but says maybe Chevy is playing it like he's indifferent. He'll move Kopp and Stastny if it's an offer he can't refuse. If not, they'll try to make the playoffs and take their chances. I think this is entirely true, and I think we talked about this. You know, he went on the broadcast in the last game before this and basically hung up the for sale sign for the league for everybody to see. And never mind that, guys like David Pagnotta and other, hey, they talked about it on Hockey Night in Canada last night about the Jets and that they've been showing interest and that teams around the league are hearing about this. Like, this is a team that never wants anyone to know anything about its business, right? Like, the Jets will basically make a trade, send a tweet to a reporter, and say, this happened, better break it quick or we're going to break it ourselves in the next 5 minutes or something like that. It'll be broken, and then the Jets will break it right after that. Like, the Jets aren't the team that it's like 2 days before a trade goes down. The news is out there that the trade is happening. So the fact that the Jets name is out there as much as it is clearly, in my mind, a departure from how Kevin Cheveldayoff usually does business. So what I see happening here is Kevin Cheveldayoff trying to drum up interest in these players to make it known that, hey, if you want these guys, we'll send them out the door if we're going to get something here. And I do still think his dream scenario is trying to move these guys, get assets, and then bring something in that will help. But I honestly do think we're still at this stage with this team. I think Kenny's water bottle has it entirely right. They aren't going to move. I think there's a very good chance, unless their offer for these players is future assets that they just cannot deny. I think that they don't want to make a move unless it helps them right now. Yeah, but right. I mean,
someone like Nick Robertson.
Yeah, Nick Robertson can help them right now. But if someone says, hey, never mind, I'm not going to give you a player out of my roster because it doesn't make sense for us. I don't want to subtract. I don't want to add and subtract in the same move. But here, what we will do is, and I'm just throwing this out there because, this is exactly what the Tampa Bay Lightning did, is we'll send 2 firsts your way and something else, right? Guys who aren't going to play right now, but boy, oh boy, that's a lot of assets for you to play with in the future. I could see Chevy saying that's an offer I can't refuse and it doesn't make us better right now, but it would have to be that in order for him to make that deal. Other than that, it's a deal if he can find a way to send someone out and bring someone in that he thinks can happen or can help them right now in this moment. But other than that, I still at this stage would not be surprised to see Kevin Cheveldayoff stand pat because it so fits with the messaging that he puts forward with this team. I believe in this team. I still believe in these players. I think he knows that the room would be happy if Paul Stastny didn't get sent out down the road or Andrew Kopp. I think they're players that are very much loved within the organization. And so moving them is going to have an effect, and you don't know what that effect is going to be until they're gone. So I definitely do think that Kenny's water bottle is onto something here. I'm not saying that something isn't going to happen, but if the Jets stood pat and did very little tomorrow, I would not be surprised one bit. We got to do some business here. I want to bring in our sponsors, the Johnson Group, who have been absolutely phenomenal to us. Great group of guys. Johnson Group is a Winnipeg-owned and operated company that provides employee benefit solutions to companies from 1 employee to 10,000 or more. Over 30,000 Canadian businesses trust Johnson Group with their employee benefit needs through various products, including the Chambers Plan, Maximum Benefit, and CINUP. Johnson Group is a platinum member of Canada's Best Managed Companies and named one of Manitoba's top employers. Whether you are a sole proprietor, part of a large organization, or an association with thousands of employees, Johnson Group has an employee benefits solution for you. And hey, if they provide their business, and that's all I have heard is they provide their business as good as Matty Golf's, that's going to be a phenomenal group there. We don't have any intro music for it, but the calls were deafening for Scott Billick to join from the chat room here. So let's bring Scotty in here. He's got the wake-up mug ready to go. Yeah, you know what? I love how you start the show by showing off the wake-up mug because it's like saying to the audience, listen, if you want to mess with me, I've got the big guns to the show. I'm
with the audience is the best. Yeah. They called me. Kenny wanted to trade me earlier. I know he did. Oh. I got that intel. Sean sent me a text during the game. I'm blowing my source here. Sean sent me a text saying Kenny's trying to trade me the
Journalism 101. Yeah, journalism 101.
I'll still keep feeding.
Right.
Scotty, let's pick up where we left off there. Where do you see the Jets going tomorrow?
I mean, I don't want to say they stand pat because I don't think they do. I mean, I think it's terrible if they do that, right? I mean, and I get what you're saying, Sean, listening to you, because this is what Kevin Chevalier does. He believes in his guys and all that stuff. But how do you still believe in this team if you're Kevin Chevalier when you are in the position you are right now? And I think at the end of the day is you have two assets that you don't want to just walk for free at the end of the year. You know Andrew Kopp's not re-signing here. Because if you wanted him before, you would have already paid him what he wants. So, we're long past that. You took him to arbitration. You just narrowly missed it last year. He's not coming back. And Paul Stastny, I think you could probably just re-sign him in the offseason anyways, right? Get something for him now. This season is essentially lost, is it not? Like, I mean, if you look at the game tonight, I mean, the Jets scraped by the Chicago Blackhawks. They were up 5-2. I mean, this doesn't work against Colorado in the first round. Nothing. Jets would get embarrassed by the
Let's hold on a sec. Someone asked me to do it earlier on, and so I'm going to throw a little bit of a grenade into the idea of the Winnipeg Jets being done. Even though I've been carrying the torch on this for a long time.
Yeah.
Here's a reason to believe that the Winnipeg Jets aren't done. Not too long ago, we were talking about the Jets being out of the playoff run and having to leapfrog a number of teams, which included the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, the Vancouver Canucks, the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights, team like the Edmonton Oilers. Well, at this stage right now, even if Vancouver wins tonight, I don't know what's happening. I know that they fell down early to the Buffalo Sabres, but the Jets have done a good, tidy job of this. They've jumped the San Jose Sharks, who are now way in the rearview mirror. They're 6 points up on them, although San Jose has a game in hand. Anaheim, they are 3 points up on. Anaheim is giving up a game in hand on them. The Vancouver Canucks, as good as they've played, had a little bit of a falter here the last little bit. So what's happening here is the Jets aren't just playing, decent hockey, probably better than decent hockey. But what's happening is the teams around them are falling apart. Now, here's the interesting part. They play Vegas next. Vegas has 4 points up on them, but they have a game in hand on Vegas. So if they beat Vegas in the next game, they close that gap to 2 and have a game in hand. So with a tidy bit of business against Vegas and winning their next game, they could be tied for that very last spot. One more fly in the ointment is the Dallas Stars, who lead them by 3 points but have 2 games in hand. If they can win those 2 games in hand, suddenly it's a 7-point gap, and it's not looking so close, and everything looks crazy here. But at this moment in time, Scotty, if you are Kevin Chevalier and you're thinking, does this team have a chance to win? Vegas very much gives you a reason to believe that you can catch them. And the Dallas Stars have lost, 3 of their last 5 games? Or sorry, they were on a 4-game losing streak, so it's better than that. I think they've lost 5 of their last 7 games. So I'll say this: there is reason to believe the Jets could pull this off. And I take umbrage with the suggestion right now that you can look and say that this team is out of it.
Okay, so reason to believe based on what, though? I mean, based on the fact that they've won and put together a 9-1-0 streak at any point this season? Based on the fact that you expect them to win, 15 of the last 20 games? Right? Because that's what they have to do. They need 30 points, right?
Jets have to go, and I've been saying this, and I'm glad that Pierre-Luc Dubois agrees with this. Jets have to go, in my mind, 14-5 to make the playoffs. That's where we would expect the teams ahead of them to end up. Except, I think right now at this stage, because they won, I think it's about 12-8 that the Dallas Stars have to go. So you are right. The fact that they're up 3 points and they have 2 games in hand, that's a pretty different swing, right? Like going 12-8 is still a pretty good record, but going 14-5, that's a phenomenal record that you have to have. But the fact of the matter is, if these teams, like the bet that Kevin Chevalier has to make right now is not just that the Jets can play really good hockey down the stretch, but it's that 2 teams falter. The Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. Well, I think there's every reason to believe that the Vegas Golden Knights are done the way that they're playing right now, unless they get reinforcements. And
they just won the last 2 games, though. Hold on.
I watched the game against Florida. They played excellent against Florida the other night. I mean, and they won.
They won 5-1.
Yanmark back was really big, but I mean, that's one game. That's one game. Let's not.
No, 2. They also beat LA yesterday.
let's not dislocate our shoulders, patting ourselves on the back here in this situation, right?
Here's the reality, Sean. If we look at Money Puck, and we had this conversation, I don't know, maybe it was at practice the other day or whatever it was. Jets are 5.9% chance of making the playoffs. If they win on Tuesday against Vegas, even though they move within 2 points of them, it only boosts up to 7.83% chance of making the playoffs. All right, who's taking that bet, Sean? This was your point, and I'm not trying to sell you out here. Exactly.
I'm just throwing grenades. Grenades, Scotty.
I understand that, but I mean, we have to be realistic too. You're just tossing grenades. You're basically tossed in your face, right? Like it's like
good line.
This is the problem with the Jets right now. Is like at 5.9%. Let's say 6%. We can round up for the glass half full people, but this is the problem. Is that the odds are so stacked against Winnipeg right now. Could they do it? Yes. What is the toll of them doing this, though, right? Let's say they keep the players, they get to the playoffs, then they go out in the first round. The only argument that I see for standing pat tomorrow is not a hockey operations argument. It's a corporate argument from True North that they need the Jets to make the playoffs because of all the money that they've lost in the last 2 years. Empty stadiums, all that. They make a lot of money back in the playoffs. Even if it's just 2 games, they make TV money, they make all the gate money, they make money on selling beer outside of the place for inflated prices, all that stuff, right? That's where the money is to be made. And that's where I wonder what trumps. Is this even a thing that the Jets are thinking about? Does Mark Chipman have his hand in this when it comes to, hey, we need to stand pat or we need to make a move, but if we're going to make a move, it's got to be an Andrew Kopp or a Paul Stastny for Jake DeBrusk. So we at least still have a chance going down, down the wire here, and we're not just pulling up a couple guys from the Moose like Jeff Malott, who played 406 tonight. I mean, that's not going to get it done, right? That doesn't move the needle. And if you're trying to make the playoffs, that's the only reason that I can see outside of a hockey operations, standpoint to actually go for the playoffs, because you need that revenue, that gate, that TV money, all of that stuff. That's the only thing that I can think of. Because otherwise, you're just betting on a 6% chance of making the playoffs. If you win, sure, you make a lot of money. If you don't, though, I mean, it looks stupid and it's sort of embarrassing, is it not? Right? Like, I guess that's the flip side of it, and that's the side that the Jets are trending towards right now. I mean, yes, they can move within points, but we've said this the whole time. Those small gaps are still very large, especially when Dallas has a couple games in hand. And Dallas isn't losing right now. They've won, 2 or 3, maybe 4 in a row at this point?
No, they lost Saturday against the Islanders, buddy. Come on.
Sure, they lost Saturday, but they've won
3 of the last straight, but lost 4 straight before that is where they're at.
Sure, okay. So they're winning again, though. They're keeping enough distance. The Jets. Here's the other thing, too, is the Jets have to leapfrog both of these teams. And with Nashville starting to win again, they're already 8 points now after tonight, ahead of the Jets. You're not catching the Nashville Predators anymore, I don't think, at this point. No. So you're betting on that you're going to leapfrog not just 1, but 2. Like, this is hard mode Frogger, to borrow a Kenny reference there. So it's not likely. And if you're a betting person, you wouldn't make the bet.
Okay,
so,
hold on. Let me ask you the question here.
One quick thing. We should just quickly. Sorry. Our colleague Jay Bell from the Winnipeg Free Press is reporting the Jets are close to reacquiring Mason Appleton from the Seattle Kraken. So, but potentially the Jets are buying the type of player that we thought they would be looking at, a guy with team control. So, I mean, he's a middle 6 forward. He's probably a third line guy, right? So he's helped their penalty kill before. I mean, does that mean Andrew Kopp is gone? Is it an Andrew Kopp replacement? Maybe, but maybe that means they're trying to bolster the roster. I mean, again, it's not confirmed, but it sounds like it is. Again, this is something that, Sean, I mentioned this months ago, that the Jets would probably be looking into the possibility. They didn't want to lose him in the first place. So hat tip to Jason Bell for mentioning that on the old Twitter machine just now. I don't know what the return would be. I would assume it would be for a draft pick, but I mean, it could be for a prospect. I mean, who knows what Ron Francis is looking for, but we'll see. We'll continue to monitor this as best we can while we are on the air here, and we'll see where things have gone.
Okay, well, here I'm going to ask you a question on because to kind of reverse the grenade here. I'll say it like this: if you're sitting at home right now and you think, boy, oh boy, I love the way the Jets are playing lately. They're absolutely on fire. I think this is a team that's on its way to the playoffs. I'll tell you this: over the last 10 games that they've played, as bad as the Dallas Stars have been, they've gained 1 point on the Dallas Stars in that time. Scott brought it up, or I think Kenny brought it up, a 7-4-1 record. So if we want to summarize what the Jets have done as of late, it's a 7-4-1 record that they have recently, right? Well, if we're talking about them going 14 and 5 down the stretch, what you're looking at here is if the Jets just ripped off and replicated what they just did, which I think people are feeling like this has them going somewhere, they would go 7-4-1. That would mean they would have accumulated 4.5 of the 5 allowable losses they have left and would need to run the table in their last 7 games, playing the style of hockey that they're playing right now. So as good as you think the Jets have been playing as of late, in order for them to make the playoffs, they need to play markedly better than that if we're going to use our formula, the one that I think the Jets believe is real. So if the Jets play like they are playing right now, as good as you think that they are playing, you would need to see an absolutely epic collapse by the Dallas Stars in order for the Jets to get there. I throw this to you, Ken, because I ask you this question. Do you think that Kevin Cheveldayoff he can say whatever he wants. He can believe in the team. But do you think, at the heart of it, Kevin Cheveldayoff believes that his Winnipeg Jets are done and are not making the playoffs?
No, I don't think he believes that. I mean, but that's because it's his job to believe in the team. I mean, he assembled the team. So at some point when you assemble the team if you don't believe in them...
Hold on, your job can't be to believe in a team.
He put the team together that we all said was a contender.
It is not his job to blindly believe in a team and not do the rest of his job based on blind belief, right? Like
that's not what I said.
No, I know, but his job may be to believe in his team, but that doesn't mean he says, well, I believe in these guys, and shuts down things to Scott's point that they only have a 5% chance of making the playoffs, and say, oh, well, I believe in this team, so forget the numbers, forget everything that tells me we're not going to make it. I believe in them, so I'm going to make my decisions based on that. What I'm asking you is at the very core.
Mid-round pick, guys, just for Appleton. Just so you know, mid-round pick
done
for
deal?
Appleton.
Done deal.
Elliot's got it here.
All right. Well,
mid-round pick.
Apple's back in town, which truly does. I mean, that's exactly what Kevin Cheveldayoff said the other night, that he wanted to get was a middle 6 forward. That's what they believe Appleton is. And, probably a smart little bit of GMing, because it doesn't cost them very much to go get a guy who really never kind of got his feet underneath him in Seattle, but can come back to Winnipeg. And if he can reclaim what he did with Adam Lowry, he's absolutely phenomenal. But to get back to it, Ken, and you may be too busy, and if you are, just shake me off and we'll move on to something.
That's fine.
But I'm asking at the very heart of it, Kevin Cheveldayoff.
Well, we have our answer.
Have an idea
buddy.
in his head. You think this is it?
Well,
or do you think he's just, this is his buying to sell?
It's possible, but
is he loading up, or is this his purchase so that he can move those guys out now?
Well, it still depends. You already said it right off the bat. It depends on the offer. I mean, if they get an offer they can't refuse, they may consider moving Kopp and Stastny. But it's insurance to begin with. And it's not just insurance, though. It's a guy with team control that the Jets liked before. They had him in their roster. They didn't want to lose him in the first place. So it's a guy who, I mean, again, some people aren't going to like this, but it probably bumps Svechnikov back down to the 4th line potentially, unless he moves to the other wing. Then Harkins can move down. But I mean, Appleton is a guy who, A, he can kill penalties. B, he's not super physical, but he does play a feisty-ish game. Not as feisty as a Brandon Tanev, but he brings some size. He has speed. He can kill penalties. And he's a guy that can get you double digits in terms of goal scoring. Yeah. So to me, I think it's a smart pickup no matter which way he decides. Like I said, my view is the same. I think that if the Jets get a good enough offer, but here's the thing. If you're the Jets, and I'm going to use Toronto as an example. I don't think that Toronto can pick him up still. But if you're the Jets, you aren't asking for Alex Kerfoot. You want Ilya Mikheyev or you want Nick Robertson. You don't want the guy they're trying to get rid of. You want the guy that you think is going to help you go the extra mile here. So, again, if they don't get that offer, would they be willing to push their chips in to see how they can roll? And if they can go 14-5, I mean, of course it's possible. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers makes a humongous difference, right? I mean, this is a guy who missed a quarter of the season. I mean, if Ehlers had not missed a quarter of the season, would we be having the same discussion? Would the Jets be potentially sellers? I personally don't think so, but ifs and ands or buts don't really help right now. The Jets are making not just a short-term decision, but a long-term decision. So, but again, there's a bigger picture.
He's a right wing, right? I mean,
right, and the Jets are
aging Blake Wheeler. I mean, you don't really have a second line right wing. Yeah, you do. I guess with Cole Perfetti and Ehlers, right? But you can now. I think there's it just adds more depth, right? So.
Yeah, size and depth. I mean, like I said,
and here's a guy who will drive to the net. Like this is we talked about Mark Scheifele not putting the shoulder down on a bunch of these plays because he seemingly doesn't want to get hit, and perhaps Mark Scheifele's playing with some sort of injury, right? I mean, we don't know at this point, but here's Mason Appleton.
Sorry, go on.
Whatever. Yeah. No, it is what it is. But
it's the same style of hockey he's been playing for a long time.
You're right.
He curls back for quiet ice and tries to find seam passes. That's his game.
Yeah. But Mason Appleton was the heir apparent, in my opinion, to Brandon Tanev when he left, right? Mason Appleton played that style of game with, now Andrew Kopp likely not going to be here. I don't know, maybe they keep him, who knows? But, that was a solid line, and he played that game very north-south, very Matthew Perreault style on the forecheck, but obviously much better hands. It's a good trade for the Jets. I mean, they didn't want to lose him, right? And I think if in the end they probably preferred to lose Dylan DeMello just for the cap hit alone, right? That's I think the reason why they put Dylan DeMello on there is maybe they would take him and his $3 million and then go with it. I mean, Mason Appleton's contract, although he is an RFA, but I don't know what his kind of money he's going to command. It's not going to be a whole lot.
Points this year.
Exactly, right. So and he's playing on a tough team, but last year with the Jets, played a good game. He's played well here, and can totally contribute. And seemed to understand his role here and played it well, right? And so, and like you said, it kind of frees up. You don't have to worry about, Svechnikov, although I thought Svechnikov has been playing well on that third line. But again, more depth. This is a team that's really struggled in its bottom six for the last little while. And so the more depth that you have, the more that you can turn this team into a four-line sort of offensive team, also with some sort of defense, has to be baked in. The puck management is atrocious right now. Mason Appleton's a great pickup for the Jets, and it's good that they got him back.
Guys, you touched on. I did want to talk about that third line because I thought they played absolutely phenomenal here tonight. I thought they went and scored the kind of goals that the Jets have been asking their team to score, and it's interesting that they go and score them at the time of game where they're needed most, right? Traffic to the net. Svechnikov goes in front, creates a little bit of a diversion. Harkins gets into the slot, redirects that puck, and then the second goal by Harkins, he's, less than a foot from the net to tap that thing in. Great play by Andrew Kopp to get the puck there. I wonder if Jansen Harkins, if there was anything freeing about, and this is what I thought the moment that this happened, I wondered when Christian Vesalainen got sent down, I wondered how Harkins would react to that. Because if we remember, Harkins was a guy who is the next piece coming up on this team, and he lost that last year to Christian Vesalainen. Christian Vesalainen jumped ahead of him in the depth chart, and then what we saw from training camp this year was clearly, we said it time and again, Christian Vesalainen being given every single opportunity to succeed with this team, not really grabbing the brass ring, but there was clearly a want from the Winnipeg Jets coaching staff and the organization for him to take a hold of that. I wonder if symbolically, maybe in Jansen Harkins' mind, outlasting Christian Vesalainen may have made him feel a little bit freer, and if that's something that we are seeing from him tonight. Ken?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, would it help him? Everyone values more ice time, but to me, this is, Christian Vesalainen has the opportunity to be sent to the minors. Jansen Harkins would require waivers, so I know that's not what we're saying here, but what you are saying is accurate. I mean, I'm sure there were times where Jansen Harkins was sitting privately and saying, what is Vesalainen doing? Why am I not getting that chance? I mean, it's a natural thing to feel, even though most people wouldn't say it publicly. But, that's the way Jansen Harkins has to play. But we also can't forget that Jansen Harkins just went 18 games without getting a single goal either. But, Vesalainen went 33, and a lot of that time, not a lot, probably half of that time was spent on the third line with Lowry. I mean, he had a massive opportunity that he did not cash in on. I mean, would it have been easier if Christian Vesalainen played on the second power play and got some more shooting looks? Sure, but it's not like he was playing 4 minutes a night every night. He had a long swath of games where he was in double digits in ice time. They basically wanted him to win the job, and he simply didn't do it. So at the same time, I know a lot of people are giving up on Vesalainen, but this is a young player. I mean, it's way too early to make a snap judgment to say that he's a bust or that he could never make it. But the fact of the matter is he probably needs to spend the next 2 months or 3 months with the Moose playing important minutes where he can touch the puck and then maybe show up at training camp and say, you know what, last year's in the past. Now let's see what I can do now.
Well, so confidence. If anything,
it's all confidence. He has no confidence.
Trying to gain a little bit of confidence. He's got none. Yeah.
Already today, I mean, he's playing on the power play. He had a one-timer look in like the first period. So that's already important for him. So, but I'm glad he's on that clear day roster, and he should stay there. Unless he goes on some kind of crazy heater. But it's way too early to say. I mean, I've said this all along, and I mean, some people may not agree, including Vesalainen, but he should have never gone back to play for Jokerit. He should have stayed in North America and played for the Moose. He made the team out of training camp. He was a good player. He got, a secondary assist in his very first game in the NHL. I understand why he would have done it. It would have been fun to play in your hometown and everything else. You make more money. But he hurt his own development by going to a place where he did not get a lot of ice time and he was not playing a North American game. So people want to say it's the Jets' fault. You're entitled to saying that. I don't share that opinion. I think that Vesalainen should have been playing for the Manitoba Moose. And if he had been playing for the Manitoba Moose, he probably would not have gone through this dry spell right now. And he wouldn't be searching for his confidence and career. But now it's all about how you handle this demotion in order to make yourself an NHL player, either with the Jets or as a throw-in in a trade somewhere else. So he's a guy who's a big body, he can shoot, and he is conscientious defensively, but his puck management wasn't always great. So get those things back, get back to doing what you are capable of doing, and then we'll make an assessment over whether or not he can be an NHL player, because I very much think he still can be. And that also applies, even though these are totally different situations, to Ville Heinola. People telling me that Ville Heinola won't be an NHL player with the Jets, that's a full-on wake-up, because the guy just turned 21 years old. Josh Morrissey wasn't a regular till he was 21 years old. So don't tell me Ville Heinola will never play for the Winnipeg Jets. Sorry.
Scotty, do you want to weigh in on that?
The only thing I would say is I wonder how much Ville kind of did, because he kind of went the same route, right, Kenny? Like, I mean, he went back to Finland in the same way.
But they were okay with him going back. The Jets were okay with him back there. Yeah.
Well, as an 18-year-old, it's tough. It's tough as an 18-year-old to play the grind of 3-3s, but
yeah, sure. Maybe you can still manage that here, though, without having to send him back home. But ultimately, they left the decision with Ville, and he decided to go back. And again, and I think Ville Heinola is a far more. I think he has a lot higher ceiling, I should say, than Vesalainen. But Vesalainen hasn't done anything that he's supposed to. People say that he hasn't been put in the right situations, but I disagree. Like, I think he's been put in all these situations. And maybe it hasn't always been for a long period of time, but this is a league where you really have to take advantage of the snippets that you get when you get on the ice. And some guys do it and other guys don't. And Vesalainen hasn't done it. And maybe this demotion right now, after he's been here the whole season, is the one that kind of wakes him up a little bit.
I'll say this, Ken. If you think that he limited himself by going back to Jokerit, then the Jets, the response to that is that the Jets then brought him up to the NHL too fast. If they felt that he was, I mean, if they really do think that he harmed himself by going back, then he probably needed to develop longer before they brought him back. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that held him back.
He had an opt-out. He had an opt-out in his contract. The Jets are the player got to choose whether it wasn't that the Jets, if he wasn't on the Jets roster, he could have chose to go back immediately.
Correct. But when he came back, the Jets, if he harmed his development by going and playing in Jokerit. He came back and spent some time with the Moose before that, before the Jets brought him up. So if the Jets really felt that his development was harmed or set back and he needed more development, then the answer isn't to pull the kid up to the NHL. The answer is to leave him in the AHL for longer and develop him for longer. So I guess I don't agree. I don't think he hurt himself as much as you think he did by going back. In the eyes of the organization, maybe, but not really, because they've given him every single opportunity. But I don't know that he held him back. But if that is the answer, if going back to Jokerit damaged him as a player, then the Jets needed to develop him longer. So if you are right, I think that it means that the Jets did mess up his development, because if he messed it up on...
You're not listening to me. What I'm saying is he had 30 points in 60 games with the Moose the year after Jokerit, so he had a year of development. I think he would have benefited more from 2 full years of development rather than the 22 games with the Moose and the 31.
You're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. If he would have benefited from the 2 years, then the Jets brought him up too quick. If he needed more development at the AHL level, then the Jets brought him up too quick. Anyway,
sure, but
I'm not sure they had a choice this year, but yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think he was damaged. I think that the Jets really, really wanted this kid to hit. They wanted to, and I think that their idea of how to develop him didn't necessarily mean playing time in the AHL. I think they were trying to build his confidence. If you gave truth serum, I love your line. If you gave a little bit of truth serum to the Winnipeg Jets when it came to Christian Vesalainen, I think they would tell you that his issue is that he doesn't have enough confidence. And you know what, guys? I've had coaches tell me about this, about players on other teams, and I'm always fascinated when I hear that and then watch that player going forward, to think that those coaches think they've got all the tools, but they just don't know that they have the tools, or they don't have the confidence in their tools, so those tools never get used properly. I think that that's how the Jets would look at Christian Vesalainen, because I can't think of why they would have employed him the way they have. Again, this kid has been given every single opportunity to hit at the NHL level, far more opportunities than the vast majority of prospects get. Ville Heinola has got nowhere near the opportunities that a player like Christian Vesalainen has got at the NHL level. So
the ones he has gotten, he's taken advantage of, right? I mean,
well, to a better degree.
Good. We can argue on that.
There's been numerous games. There's been at least 3 games where Ville Heinola has gone up and made a decision that directly cost the Jets a goal. I will say this: it is hard to be a young defenseman coming up into the league and doing that, and then staying in the lineup. Like, that's the one thing where I have a difference between the Ville Heinola people. Like, I get that, and I think that Ville Heinola is really good. I think he's going to be a great NHLer. But I also think if you're going to go up and you're that guy who's needs to show that you can move the puck and get down ice and create offense, you still have to show that you can be a defender at the NHL level. And there's, again, been, in my count, is at a minimum 3 times in a game, Ville Heinola has made a decision that was a mistake that ended up in the back of their net, right? So I'm not saying that but to your point, he has also capitalized on a lot of opportunities. How many points does Vesalainen have right now? I think he's got 3. 3 points. 3 points in 53 games. I mean, that is
33 games.
This is a guy. Right? This is a guy that they want to start in the third line. If you are getting one of your third liners, one of your top 9 players is chipping in 3 points on the year, your depth scoring is going to be in trouble. And let's take it a step further, guys. Depth scoring has been a problem for the Jets this year, and maybe the usage of Christian Vesalainen in an important spot, as long as he was in those important spots, is part of the problem here. But just to go back at this, I'll say this again. The people who are saying that the Jets mismanaged this player, I don't think I've seen a player given more opportunity to break out or bust out or do something. So I disagree entirely with the idea that the Jets have mismanaged this player. If anything, they've stuck with him.
That's not what I said.
You're not
the
saying
player
that.
made the
you're
choice.
You're not saying that. Your argument, my argument with you is different than the chat rooms. That there's people in the chat room who have suggested the Jets mismanaged the player. I don't think that's true. I think there are very few. Like, I'm talking like 5%. 5% of NHL prospects are given the rope that that Christian Vesalainen is given unless they're on a really, really bad team that just needs to fill spots. Ken?
Yeah.
Just the one point that the other people would make, we always talk about Vesalainen shot. So the one area he has not been given an opportunity to contribute on is the power play. So I think that's where the argument comes from. Again, I'm not saying that I'm not disagreeing with your point. He had tons of minutes at the start of the year, but if you're an offensive guy and need touches and need to be working on your shot, then the power play would be a situation where the Jets maybe could have used him. But again, this is a young player. He's 22 years old. He's going to be given an opportunity to figure it out. And if he figures it out, then we'll see. Again, I mean, I understand a lot of people making snap judgments. That's okay, but also keep the receipts. So again, he may not amount to, he may not turn into a star. That's not what I'm saying. But to say that he can't become a regular, I think that I'd be careful of that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go down that road, but I'd say at this stage, I would say if you had to bet $1,000 on it and someone was going to flip a coin on it and say, let's bet $1,000 here, is Christian Vesalainen going to be a significant NHLer, or is he more likely to end up back overseas in the next 3 years? Where would you put your money?
Well, I think he could still be a contributor. I would bet on him being a contributor. It may not be with the Jets, but there's somebody that thinks they can use him in their top 9.
No doubt.
6% chance.
There you go. That's it for us here tonight. Really appreciate everyone coming along for the ride with us. Can't go too long. Got to get up early in the morning. Got to do that trade deadline business because a lot's been gone and out of the way. It's really cleared the table, I think, for that last day. And I feel like the stage is open and the Jets could very potentially step out on that stage. Because as I said at the top of the show, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Jets took their own rentals. Because I truly do believe, I don't know where we landed on it with you, Ken. I truly do believe that at the heart of this situation, Kevin Cheveldayoff does think that his team can make the can make the playoffs. And I do think that he wants to give them every possibility to make it. Doesn't mean that he's not going to trade those players, but if he stood pat tomorrow, it wouldn't be jaw dropping for me. Anyway, guys want any kind of last word?
Go ahead, Kenny. I know you're
it's going to be a fun
percolating there.
Fun day. I
got
some writing to do.
People were asking about the trade deadline show. It doesn't look like it's happening. We haven't had, like I said, we would need to put a conglomerate of people together. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. So before we do go, I just wanted to show our merch to everybody. If you're interested in Kenny and Renny, a mug like Scotty Billick showed you right off the top of the show in 3 different colors. We've got water bottles for Kenny's water bottle. We've got Sean's headband shirts. We've got Wake Up T-shirts. We've got K&R shirts. Everything you need is at www.shopsportsnet.store. We really appreciate the support that we've got from everybody out there. Boy, oh boy, it means a ton to us. Keep it coming. And that's it for us here. We will see you tomorrow on Sportsnet if you want to check in. We'll try to get up. We'll try and get something up. Stay tuned. I think, hey, this is a perfect push to say if you like what you've seen with our show here and you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, the only way you're going to know if we have a pop-up show tomorrow is if you subscribe, and then YouTube will give you a little heads up that we're doing it. So go find our videos, like our videos, subscribe. Appreciate everything, everyone's comments here tonight. You really helped to fuel the show. Thank you so much. We will see you tomorrow.